The atmosphere processing facility on Elysium's northern continent had failed again. Governor Eris Thorne stood at the viewport of his administrative tower, watching as the sickly yellow haze crept across the valley below, wilting crops and sending citizens scurrying indoors with makeshift filtration masks pressed to their faces. "How long this time?" Thorne asked, not turning from the window. Dr. Eliza Morrow, Elysium's chief atmospheric scientist, cleared her throat. 3 weeks, maybe 4, if we cannibalize parts from the Eastern Quadrant processors. But that would leave 500,000 people exposed. And the bacterial remediation failed. The pathogen mutated again. It's consuming our engineered bacteria faster than we can produce them. Thorne closed his eyes briefly. Elysium, humanity's farthest colonial outpost on the edge of explored space, had seemed so promising when they'd arrived 30 years ago. Rich soil, breathable atmosphere, abundant water. But something in the planet's complex ecosystem had begun to turn against them in the past 2 years. Atmospheric degradation accelerating exponentially, crops failing to native pathogens that evolved with frightening speed to overcome each adaptation humans engineered. "Send another request to the Kaithar Federation," he said finally. "Be more specific this time. Advanced atmosphere processors, genetic engineering tools for the bacterial remediation, enough emergency supplies to sustain us through 6 standard months." Dr. Morrow hesitated. "Governor, the last 3 messages." "I know what happened with the last 3 messages," Thorne snapped, then regretted his tone immediately. "I'm sorry, Eliza, but we have to keep trying. They're the only advanced civilization within range that might have the technology to help us. And if they refuse again?" Thorne finally turned from the window, his face set in grim determination. "Then we move to contingency planning. Full evacuation scenarios. And," he hesitated, then lowered his voice, "Project Lazarus." Dr. Morrow's eyes widened. "You can't be serious. That technology is beyond our understanding. The energy readings alone are unlike anything we've ever seen," Thorne finished. "I know, but record this request to the Kaithar. Make it clear this is a humanitarian emergency affecting 3 million human lives. Make it impossible for them to misunderstand what's at stake." Far across the sector, in the gleaming capital of the Kaithar Federation, Ambassador Kalen adjusted his ceremonial collar as he prepared to present the latest communication from the human colony to the High Council. The Kaithar were a proud species, reptilian in appearance but warm-blooded and highly intelligent, with a civilization spanning hundreds of worlds. Kalen found these human requests tiresome. The colony on Elysium was strategically unimportant, barely worth noticing on the galactic stage. Their technology was primitive by Kaithar standards, their population insignificant, their resources minimal. Yet they persisted in these increasingly desperate pleas. "Honorable Council," he began, addressing the 7 senior officials arranged in a semicircle before him. "I bring yet another communication from the human settlement on Elysium." Counselor TYX, the eldest member, flicked his tail in irritation. "What do they want this time?" "The usual. Atmospheric processing technology, genetic engineering tools, emergency supplies. They claim their situation has deteriorated further." "And what benefit would providing such aid bring to the Federation?" asked Counselor Vex, head of economic affairs. Kalen spread his hands. "Minimal, Counselor. The humans have little to trade. Their technological contributions will be negligible." "However," he added reluctantly, "under galactic humanitarian protocols, there is an obligation to respond to legitimate distress signals from recognized sentient species." The council chamber fell silent as the officials considered this. Finally, Counselor Syra, a relatively young female with progressive leanings, spoke up. "Perhaps we should send a scientific delegation to assess their situation, if it's truly as dire as they claim." "A waste of resources," interrupted Vex. "The Elysium system is weeks away from our nearest significant outpost. The humans settled that world knowing the risks of distance from established civilizations." TYX nodded in agreement. "They should solve their own problems. Species that cannot adapt do not survive. That is the natural order." Kalen sensed the direction of the conversation and seized his opportunity. Perhaps a compromise, honorable counsel. We could send a token shipment, outdated atmosphere processors, and a small supply cache. Enough to acknowledge the humanitarian protocols without significant cost to the Federation. The humans will see we've responded, and our obligation will be fulfilled. The council members exchanged glances. Then TYX nodded. A reasonable solution. Make it clear this is a one-time accommodation. Let them understand they must become self-sufficient or face the consequences of their poor choice of colony world. It shall be done, Kalen replied, bowing deeply to hide his satisfied expression. The supplies he would send would buy the humans perhaps a few weeks of relief, nothing more, but it would satisfy the bureaucratic requirements and remove this annoyance from his agenda. 3 weeks later, Governor Thorne read the Kaithar response with growing disbelief and rage. Limited assistance, package forthcoming, surplus equipment, expected arrival in approximately 12 standard weeks. He looked up at his senior staff gathered in the Emergency Operations Center. 12 weeks. By then, half our atmospheric systems will have failed completely. And the surplus equipment they're sending is at least 2 generations behind our current technology, added Chief Engineer Saito, scrolling through the technical specifications. It won't integrate with our systems without significant modifications. Thorne slammed his hand on the table. They're not helping us. They're patronizing us, checking a bureaucratic box while watching us die. The room fell silent. Outside, through the reinforced windows, they could see citizens lining up at the medical center, many wearing filtration masks. The line stretched around the building and down the street. We need to activate the evacuation protocols, said Security Director Reyes. Begin loading essential personnel onto the transport ships. And go where? Thorne asked quietly. Our ships can't reach another habitable system without resupply. Earth is too far. The nearest human outpost is struggling with their own resource shortages. Then we beg, suggested Administrative Director Park. Send another message to the Kaithar, to every species within communication range. Make it clear we're facing extinction. Thorne stared at the table for a long moment, then looked up, his eyes focusing on Dr. Morrow. Eliza, what's the status of Project Lazarus? The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Project Lazarus was spoken of only in whispers, a mysterious artifact discovered deep beneath Elysium's surface during the initial colonization. Technology of unknown origin, giving off energy signatures unlike anything in human scientific understanding. Early experiments had resulted in inexplicable phenomena and dangerous power fluctuations, leading to the project being officially abandoned and the artifact sealed away. It remains contained in the Omega facility, Dr. Morrow answered carefully. But, Governor, the risks are unknown, Thorne finished. But our extinction is becoming a certainty. He stood up straight, decision made. I want a full briefing on Project Lazarus in 2 hours. Every piece of data we have. And I want a final broadcast prepared to all nearby civilizations. What will it say? Asked Park. Thorne's expression hardened. That humanity on Elysium will be pursuing its own solution. That we hope for understanding. And that we will remember who offered help and who stood by while we face annihilation. The next day, a short, cryptic message was transmitted from Elysium to all nearby star systems, including the Kaithar Federation. Ambassador Kalen barely glanced at it before filing it away. Another human melodrama not worth his attention. 6 months later, the Kaithar supply ship finally entered the Elysium system, its captain annoyed at being assigned such a menial delivery mission. As the ship approached the human colony world, the sensors detected something unusual, a shimmering energy field surrounding the entire planet, unlike anything in the Kaithar database. Attempting to establish communication with Elysium colony, reported the communications officer. Silence. Scanning for human settlement patterns or technology signatures. More silence. Then, Captain, I'm detecting massive energy readings throughout the planet, but no recognizable human technology. There's something different down there. The captain frowned. Different how? I can't say, sir. The energy signatures don't match anything in our records, and the field surrounding the planet is blocking detailed scans. After several hours of fruitless attempts to contact the colony or penetrate the mysterious field, the captain made his decision. Logged the delivery as unable to complete due to unexplained planetary phenomena. Note that Elysium colony appears to be no longer viable. Set course back to Federation space. The supply ship departed, carrying its now useless cargo and a perfunctory report that would wind its way through Kaidar bureaucracy, eventually reaching Ambassador Kalen's desk, where it would be filed away with a brief note. Elysium colony. Lost. In the years that followed, Elysium became a footnote in Kaidar records, a failed human colony on an unremarkable world at the edge of known space. Ambassador Kalen received a promotion for his efficient handling of interspecies relations. The humans of Elysium were forgotten. Captain Lyra Vash stood on the bridge of the Kaidar patrol vessel Unrelenting Vigilance, surveying the long-range sensor displays. 5 years into her command, this was supposed to be a routine survey mission of the outer territories, looking for resource deposits, mapping spatial anomalies, and maintaining Federation presence in the border regions. Captain called out Sensor Officer Telex, his voice oddly tight. Unknown object approaching at high velocity. Vash straightened. Origin. General direction of the old Elysium system, but it's moving too fast to pinpoint exact. He stopped abruptly. It's changed course, Captain. It's coming directly toward us now. Tactical display, Vash ordered. The main view screen shifted to show a three-dimensional tactical grid. A single red point of light was moving toward their position at extraordinary speed, far beyond the capabilities of any Kaidar vessel. Time to intercept. Telex swallowed. At current velocity, 3 minutes, 7 seconds. That's impossible, muttered Vash. Nothing moves that fast in normal space. She turned to her tactical officer. Defensive posture. Shields at maximum. Weapons systems on standby. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, but Vash could sense their unease. The border regions were supposed to be empty except for the occasional trader or pirate vessel, neither of which possessed technology that could achieve such speeds. Object is decelerating, announced Telex, rapidly matching our position. On screen, order Vash. The view screen shifted again, showing a vessel of unfamiliar design. It was sleek yet angular, with crystalline structures embedded in its hull that pulsed with internal light. There were no visible engine exhausts or weapon ports, yet something about it radiated power and purpose. It's scanning us, reported Telex, his voice rising. Captain, it's penetrating our shields, as if they weren't there. Establish communication, Vash ordered, fighting to keep her voice steady. All standard frequencies and protocols. Communications Officer Maris worked her console. Channel open, Captain. Vash straightened her uniform. This is Captain Lyra Vash of the Kaidar Federation vessel Unrelenting Vigilance. Identify yourself and state your purpose in this sector. The view screen remained unchanged for several seconds, then flickered. A humanoid figure appeared, bipedal, with the general proportions of a human, but with skin that seemed to shift between organic tissue and something resembling polished metal. Its eyes glowed with an internal blue light. Kaidar vessel, the figure said in a voice that was unervingly calm and devoid of emotion. I am Terran Border Protection Unit 7 of the new Terran Sovereignty. You have entered protected space. State your purpose and prepare for verification. Vash blinked in confusion. Terran? You mean human? The designation human is obsolete, replied the figure. We are Terran. This sector falls under sovereignty protection. Your presence here requires justification. Vash glanced at her first officer in bewilderment, then back at the screen. I'm not aware of any new Terran sovereignty recognized by the Galactic Council. This sector is designated as open space under Federation patrol jurisdiction. Your information is outdated, the figure stated flatly. Galactic Council spatial designations no longer apply to sovereignty territory. You will power down your weapons systems and prepare to receive verification protocols, or you will leave immediately. You have 30 seconds to comply." Vash felt a chill run down her spine. She quickly accessed her database terminal, searching for any information about this Terran sovereignty. The only result was a brief entry about the lost human colony of Elysium, its last recorded communication being a cryptic message about pursuing our own solution. "We are operating under full authority of the Kaidar Federation and in accordance with Galactic Council regulations," Vash stated firmly. "We do not recognize your authority to—" The ship shuddered violently. "Weapons systems offline," shouted the tactical officer. "They've been remotely deactivated." "Impossible," Vash whispered, but the warning lights across the tactical console confirmed it. The Terran figure's expression remained unchanged. "Your weapons have been temporarily disabled as a precautionary measure. They will be restored once you exit Sovereignty space. This is your final warning. Depart immediately or face more permanent measures." Vash stared at the screen, mind racing. Whatever this entity was, it possessed technology far beyond Kaidar capabilities. Fighting was not an option. Diplomacy seemed unlikely to succeed. "We will withdraw," she said finally. "But the Kaidar Federation will be informed of this encounter and your territorial claims." "This is acceptable," replied the figure. "Inform your leaders that formal diplomatic contact can be established through proper channels when they are prepared to acknowledge the sovereignty as equals. Until then, all Kaidar vessels are to remain outside the designated boundaries." The screen went dark, and moments later, control of the weapons systems was restored. The mysterious vessel maintained its position, watching as the unrelenting vigilance changed course and accelerated away. "Set course for the nearest Federation outpost," Vash ordered. "Maximum speed, and prepare a priority message for High Command. Something has happened to the humans of Elysium, something that's transformed them into whatever that was." As her ship sped away, Vash couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had just become a much more dangerous place. High Admiral Greyvax of the Kaidar Federation stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the massive battle fleet assembled in formation. 40 of the Federation's most powerful warships, carrying over 100,000 troops and enough firepower to subjugate an entire star system. Beside him, Foreign Minister Kalen, formerly ambassador, observed the military display with satisfaction. This should be sufficient to deal with these new Terrans and their territorial presumptions. "Perhaps," Greyvax replied, his voice betraying no emotion. A veteran of 3 interstellar conflicts, he had learned never to underestimate an enemy, especially one with unknown capabilities. Captain Vash's report suggests technology far beyond what humans possessed when Elysium was last contacted. Kalen waved a dismissive hand. "Exaggeration. Or perhaps they salvaged technology from some ancient ruins. Either way, they cannot stand against the combined might of the Federation." Greyvax said nothing. The diplomatic corps always believed military might could solve what their words could not. But something about this situation felt different. The reports from other patrol vessels confirmed Captain Vash's encounter, a growing sphere of influence around the Elysium system, patrolled by vessels of advanced design that could outmaneuver anything in the Kaidar fleet. "The Council expects results, Admiral," Kalen continued. "These humans must be taught their place in the galactic order." "And what place is that, Minister?" Greyvax asked mildly. Kalen looked surprised by the question. "Why, as a minor species, of course. One that should be grateful for whatever attention the established powers deign to give them." "I see," Greyvax said. "And is that why you sent them outdated atmosphere processors when they begged for help during the crisis?" Kalen stiffened. "I fulfilled our obligations under the humanitarian protocols. The Council approved my recommendation." "Indeed they did," Greyvax agreed. "And now we're sending a battle fleet." 2 weeks later, the Kaidar battle fleet approached the border of what the new Terran sovereignty had claimed as their territory. Admiral Greyvax stood on the bridge of the flagship Inevitable Dominance, Minister Kalen at his side as an observer, and Greyvax suspected as the Council's spy. "No response to our communication," reported the communications officer. "Continue broadcasting on all frequencies," Gravax ordered. Make it clear we are prepared to use force if they do not acknowledge Federation authority over this sector. The fleet moved forward in perfect formation, weapons systems charged, shields at maximum power. On the tactical display, the border of claimed Terran space loomed closer. Still no response. Admiral, the communications officer said. Wait, I'm detecting energy signatures ahead. Multiple vessels decloaking. The main view screen showed a small flotilla of vessels similar to the one Captain Vash had encountered, but of varying sizes and configurations. They formed a precise defensive line along the border. They're outnumbered 10-1, Kalen observed with satisfaction. Now we'll see how brave these new Terrans are. Open a direct channel, Gravax ordered. I want to speak to whoever's in command. Before the communications officer could comply, every console on the bridge flashed with warning signals simultaneously. Throughout the fleet, the same phenomenon occurred. Weapons systems powered down, propulsion reduced to minimal life support levels, faster than light, drives completely disabled. What's happening? Demanded Kalen, his voice rising in panic. We're being neutralized, the tactical officer replied, working frantically at his unresponsive console. Some kind of energy field is affecting all our ships simultaneously. Gravax had never seen anything like it in 40 years of military service. An entire battle fleet, the pride of the Kaithar Federation, rendered impotent without a single shot fired. The main view screen activated on its own, displaying a three-dimensional hologram. A human figure took shape, an older male with weathered features and eyes that seemed to glow with internal light. Despite never having met him, Gravax recognized Governor Eris Thorn from the old Elysium records. But this was not the desperate colonial administrator begging for help. This figure radiated power and absolute control. Admiral Gravax, Thorn said, his voice resonating with harmonic undertones that no human vocal cords could produce. And Minister Kalen, how fitting that you both should be here. Kalen stepped forward, his diplomatic training taking over despite his fear. This is an act of war against the Kaithar Federation. Release our vessels immediately or face the consequences. A cold smile touched Thorn's lips. Consequences? Like the ones you threatened us with 5 years ago, Minister? When we begged for help as our atmosphere collapsed and our children suffocated? The bridge fell silent. You don't recognize me, do you, Kalen? Thorn continued. I was just another desperate voice to you then. One of many inferior species seeking handouts from a mighty Kaithar. His gaze shifted to Gravax. Admiral, your ships have not been harmed, merely suspended. Your crews are uninjured. Consider this a demonstration of restraint on our part. What do you want? Gravax asked quietly. Recognition, Thorn replied simply. Acknowledgement of the new Terran sovereignty and our territorial claims. Non-aggression, the basic courtesies one civilization extends to another. And in return, Gravax pressed, we will not expand further into what you consider Federation space. For now, we have what we need at present. Kalen found his voice again. This is extortion. The Federation does not negotiate under threat. Thorn's expression hardened. Perhaps a more comprehensive demonstration is required. He made a subtle gesture, and suddenly, the hologram expanded to show a recording. It displayed the council chamber where, years ago, Kalen had presented Elysium's desperate plea for help. Every word was preserved in perfect clarity. The dismissals, the contempt, the decision to send token aid that would arrive too late to make any difference. We kept records, Thorn said softly as the playback ended. When we realized no help was coming, when we understood we had been abandoned by every so-called civilized species, we made a choice. What did you do? Whispered Gravax. Thorn's form seemed to shimmer, flesh and metal flowing into each other in subtle patterns. We embraced the heart of Elysium, the ancient technology buried beneath our colony. We merged with it and with each other. We transcended our limitations. We are still Terran, but we are also something more, something born of necessity and desperation. You're not human anymore, Kalen stammered. We are evolved, Thorn corrected. And we no longer need your help, your permission, or your recognition. But we will have your respect. He leaned forward slightly, his glowing eyes intensifying. The day humanity stopped asking for help and started getting feared has arrived. You taught us self-reliance, Minister Kalen, a lesson we have learned thoroughly. With another gesture, Thorne's hologram vanished. Moments later, the bridge consoles began to reactivate. Life support, basic propulsion, communications. But weapons and FTL drives remained offline. Your fleet is free to return to Federation space. Thorne's voice echoed through the communication system. Your weapons and faster-than-light capabilities will be restored once you cross back over the border. Consider this encounter a formal establishment of diplomatic relations between the Kaidar Federation and the new Terran sovereignty. As the fleet limped away from Terran space, Admiral Greyvax stood silent at the viewport, watching the mysterious vessels that had so completely outmatched his fleet. Beside him, Minister Kalen had not spoken a word since Thorne's revelation. "We created this," Greyvax said finally. "Our arrogance, our dismissal of their suffering." Kalen had no reply. The return of the defeated fleet sent shockwaves through the Kaidar Federation and beyond. Emergency council sessions were convened. Military analyses were conducted. Diplomatic overtures were hastily prepared. Minister Kalen was dismissed in disgrace. His career ended by the revelation of his role in the Elysium crisis. Admiral Greyvax submitted his resignation. Though it was refused, the Federation needed experienced leaders now more than ever. Captain Lyra Vash found herself summoned to high command, her early encounter with the Terrans suddenly of paramount importance. She stood before the gathered admirals and counselors, recounting every detail of that meeting. "In your assessment, Captain," asked Counselor Syra, who had once suggested sending real help to Elysium, "what are the Terrans' intentions?" Vash considered carefully before answering. They seemed primarily concerned with establishing their territory and ensuring their security. The representative I encountered was firm, but not openly hostile. She paused. "However, the demonstration against Admiral Greyvax's fleet shows they are willing to use their technological superiority when threatened. Could we match their technology with sufficient research and development?" asked another counselor. Vash shook her head. "Based on the sensor readings we obtained, their technology doesn't just exceed ours. It operates on principles we don't yet understand. They've integrated biological and mechanical systems in ways our scientists consider theoretical at best." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. "So what do we do?" someone finally asked. "We adapt," Vash replied simply. "We acknowledge the new Terran sovereignty as a power to be respected. We establish diplomatic relations on equal terms. And we remember that our actions or inactions created this situation." In the months that followed, the galactic maps were redrawn. The space surrounding the Elysium system, once considered unremarkable frontier territory, was now marked as Terran sovereignty, a zone to be approached with caution and respect. Intelligence reports indicated that the Terrans were expanding, not through military conquest, but through careful exploration and settlement of unclaimed systems rich in resources. Their technology continued to evolve in ways that baffled Federation scientists. Occasional diplomatic exchanges were formal and correct, but the Terrans shared little about their nature or intentions. In the highest levels of the Kaidar government, Foreign Affairs Director Vesic, Kalen's replacement, stood before a holographic display of the updated stellar map. The territory of the new Terran sovereignty was highlighted in pulsing blue light, slowly but steadily expanding outward from Elysium. There had been no declarations of war, no diplomatic ultimatums, just the quiet, inexorable growth of a power that had emerged from the ashes of a desperate colony that no one had deemed worth saving. "They don't need us anymore," Vesic murmured, tracing the border of Terran space with one scaled finger. "No more pleas for help. No more desperate messages." An aide standing nearby shifted uncomfortably. "The latest intelligence suggests they've established contact with 3 other minor species in the adjacent sectors, offering technological exchanges." Vesic nodded slowly. The Terrans were building alliances, sharing select aspects of their advanced technology with species that the major powers had similarly ignored or patronized. "We taught them a lesson," Vesic said softly, "that when you're weak, no one helps you. That only the strong survive." He turned away from the map. Now the entire galaxy is learning their lesson in return. Never push a desperate species to the edge and then ignore their cries for help. As he walked away, the map continued its silent display, the blue light of Terran space pulsing like a heartbeat, steady, patient, and unstoppable.